The following letter was delivered to the Greek government on July the 12th, 2011, making it clear that the people of Gaza seek freedom and respect for their human rights, including their right to lead a dignified life, not charity. Seemingly deaf to their call, the next day a spokesman for the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Delavekouras, repeated the Greek government's generous offer to deliver limited humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, instead of helping them gain their freedom that Israel continues to deny them. The letter is dated the 12th of July 2011. Dear Prime Minister Papandreou, dear Foreign Minister Lambrinidis, we, members of Palestinian civil society in Gaza, have been watching the actions your government has taken to block Freedom Flotilla 2 from setting sail towards the biggest open-air prison, the Gaza Strip, to challenge Israel's criminal blockade. Israel's closure of Gaza has deprived us of things that most people take for granted. First and foremost, our freedom of movement. We are not allowed to pursue adequate health care or educational opportunities because we cannot travel freely. We are cut off from our families in other parts of the occupied territory and abroad, and we are not allowed to invite people to visit us in Gaza. Now you have imported this restriction on the people whose main mission is to stand in solidarity with us. The people of Gaza are not only in need of humanitarian aid because we are prevented from building our economy. We are not allowed to import raw materials or to export. Our fishermen and farmers get shot at when attempting to fish or to harvest their crops. As a result of deliberate Israeli policy, 80% of our people have become food aid dependent. Our infrastructure is in shambles, and our children cannot imagine a day when they will know freedom. Your offer to deliver the cargo of the Freedom Flotilla entrenches the notion that humanitarian aid will solve our problems and is a weak attempt to disguise your complicity in Israel's blockade. We are so sorry not to accept your charity. The organizers and participants of the Freedom Flotilla recognize that our plight is not about humanitarian aid. It is about human rights. They carry with them something more important than aid. They carry hope, love, solidarity, and respect. Your offer to collude with our oppressors to deliver aid to us is totally rejected. While it is clear that you have been under enormous political pressure to comply with the will of the Israeli regime, to collaborate with Israel in violating international law and legitimizing the siege, we refuse to accept your breadcrumbs. We crave freedom, dignity, and the ability to make choices in our daily lives. We urge you to immediately reconsider and to let the Freedom Flotilla sail. Finally, we recognize the historical relations between our people and your country's support for our legitimate rights. With this history in mind and your previous acknowledgement of the freedoms denied to us, we are calling on you to allow the Freedom Flotilla boats to leave for Gaza, thus challenging Israel's illegal blockade of the Gaza Strip and illegal occupation of Palestinian land. And this letter is signed the Palestinian Network of NGOs, representing over 60 non-governmental organizations in Gaza, plus a further 32 organizations.
Shall I just give me this?
Thank you.
Perfect. I will make sure to convey this message to our ambassador in Washington, who is responsible about these things.
Thank you.
And you know that our government and Greece in general has been very supportive for many years to the Palestinian issue.
Yes.
And you know that there are other countries that they didn't allow this flotilla also to use their ports.
And I also know some history of Greece when the partition plan was being voted on in the United Nations in 1947. The Zionists were using death threats and bribery and other corruption on countries to get them to sign the partition plan, and the only country that refused to be bribed or corrupted was Greece. So you have a proud history there in supporting the Palestinian people and standing up to the Zionists, because Greece was the only country who had not been intimidated back in 1947.
Unfortunately, there are many regimes in this part of the world, in the Middle East, that are not very democratic. So when it's first to start maybe from other countries, and we can focus then to educate. Anyway, okay, I will convey this message to my ambassador.
Thank you. Janet was on the Freedom Flotilla last year on the Mavri Marva, and Henry here was on the Freedom Flotilla this year, and I think he'd like to speak about the treatment of the Audacity of Hope, which now has had its to you, because the Greeks have turned off the power. Okay. Henry, do you want to speak about that?
Well, I think you probably know the story. The boat was stopped by the Coast Guard. We understand, as Jane said, the pressures that were put upon your government, particularly at this moment of financial difficulty. But at the very least, you could treat the people, your government could treat the people humanely. The boat has been impounded now for a couple of weeks at that Coast Guard pier that's apparently used regularly by the Americans. Since they can't run the engine day and night, burning fuel while they're just sitting at the dock, they depend on shore power. You know, we were plugged in for a while from the shore, and that at least kept the freezer running and the air conditioning. As you know, I'm sure it's very hot in Athens and Paris at this time of the year. So, but in recent days, they have the authorities on the pier have repeatedly unplugged the power and prevented the people who are still living on that boat to try to protect it from sabotage or anything else, have been forced to stay there with no power, which means no air conditioning. It's stifling hot, and it seems like just a form of petty harassment. There's no, the amount of, there's certainly no economic factor. It's a trivial amount of money. I'm not sure whether the Americans are demanding that of you, but at the least you could stand up and say, we're just going to provide electricity to these 3 women who are stuck on this boat until we can get the damn boat out. And beyond that, the other thing is your authorities need to let that boat out, move to a commercial marina, and plan for the next flotilla. Thank you.
But I will convey this letter to our ambassador.
And as Henry said, would you please also convey the importance of not only giving electrical power to the boat, but letting the boat be moved from its current incarceration, where it's being held at the military dock, and be allowed to go to a commercial port, so that further planning for the next flotilla can continue. And not only for the U.S. boat, for all the other boats.
They need to be able to
leave.
As you know, the Greek government tries to implement the international law. So in this respect, I will convey your message. Yeah.
Thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're still living under